Hey, what's happening? It's been a little bit since I've posted anything other than just rail fanning. I've been actually out of town, still out of town, but was able to bring some modeling stuff with me to keep me occupied. And I've been buying some stuff. This is one of them. It's a brass K27. It's a United slash Atlas. They're pretty old models, probably around, I would say, late 60s, early 70s. Um, and I bought and built a West Side models about, it's probably been 3, 4 years now. And I told myself I'd probably never do it again. It was a lot of work. But with Blackstone models having issues producing models and the availability, and then just the price of them, some of these older brass models are actually pretty good deals. This one I got for just over $200 on eBay. Wasn't really sure of its status as far as did it run, did it not. The lister really didn't know much, and I didn't know if it still had the old motor in it or not. But luckily, somebody had already put a Northwest Shortline motor in it, and it was pretty much good to go. And I've just been adding DCC to it. So part of the stuff that I've done so far is it did have a headlamp before, but I removed that. So I'm going to put the LED lights in. And then I don't know if you can see, but I actually drilled all these marker lights out. That way I can add LEDs. And then you can see that the backside is, I had to drill and chamfer a little bit, but that should work pretty good. And then this model, it actually is represented as 463, and it did have a doghouse back on the tender. But this one I'm modeling as 461 because that's the closest. Actually, might actually be another one now because I just realized this is an inside cylinder, not an outside. So, okay, so it won't be 461. You need to do a little more research, but either way, most of them didn't have doghouses. 453 was the only one that had the doghouse, and I've got that in a Blackstone. So I've been trying my hand at soldering brass, which turns out to be really hard. I've had to redo this back section probably 3 times. This ladder included, I've had to rebuild and resolder. Because as soon as you apply heat to it, it just crumbles when you're trying to solder the other stuff. And then the other thing I've been doing is making them DCC ready. So I've added just a regular decoder. It's a Digitrax 126, and that one now allows for the Keep Alive, which I also have in the tender as well. And I'll show you pictures of that right now. And then the other one that I read online that I saw somebody else doing on the Model Railroad Hobbyist website was using a micro USB plug for the connection from the tender to the locomotive. Because if you ever install DCC in a steam, unless you got room in the boiler, which this one doesn't, there's not a lot of room because there is a lead weight in here, and I'd like to keep that because it really helps these things run a little bit better. Your other option is just to put it into the tender. In doing so, you have a minimum of 5 wires that you need to run back. So I've done them using the standard like 3 plugs on either side and that run underneath, and I found that they'd be a real problem just hooking them up, and they tend to bind. And so I'm trying this solution out. Hopefully it works because I've cut apart the model putting it in, but you can see how the micro USB just sits back in there, and I'll show a picture of how it's screwed in right now. So you can see that they're the bolts that are going in there, and then I'll show a picture of how this thing is wired inside, and it's basically just, I just notched it through here. And then this thing's not fully wired up because I need to add micro plugs, so that way when I paint or disassemble, I can unplug everything and keep the wiring harness intact. So I haven't fully wired it. So I was going to do the same with the headlamp to the front, just a micro plug so that you can take the front plate off. And then that would house the 3 lights there. So yeah, so this one is pretty much ready to go, other than just a small little wiring. I gotta check now that I realize this is a different model, if there's any more detail that I need to be adding. But for the most part, these are really good engines from what I've been reading, the PFMs / Uniteds. So we'll see. I haven't been able to fully run it yet because I don't have any layout or track or anything with me right now. So the next one I bought, and I've been wanting one of these for at least 3-4 years now, is a K37. It's kind of the oddball of the narrow gauge. They were once standard gauge engines that were converted over to narrow gauge. But this is also an Atlas United model. It's probably from the same era, the 60s, late 60s, 70s. But they're constructed similarly. So this one, same thing. I drilled out the marker lights. You can see them through there. So this will have the marker lights on the front and then the headlamp in the front. And then the other thing I added that this model doesn't have for some reason is this, if I can get the camera to focus, is this step and grab iron. So I actually, probably just broke it. I actually had to solder this on, and this is after the tender. So I'm starting to get a little bit better at soldering. So, because if you were trying to glue this, it's 1 or 2 hits and this thing would just pop right off. I mean, you could probably use epoxy and that would work pretty good, but so this one actually required a little bit more work. As you can see, I don't know if it came from the factory with a hole in it, but it has a hole in it for a speaker. But I didn't run sound in it. It's pretty expensive when you start adding everything else up. And usually I end up muting sound anyways because it gets a bit too much. But you can see the decoder in there. And I'll show photos of it right now. And this one is the same thing, but this one actually had a larger motor that protruded out the rear. They were the old school Pitman motors. So this one I actually had to add a back head and enclose it. So this one I also used pretty much the same motor that was in the K27. It's a Northwest Shortline motor. I can put the actual motor in the thing if anyone's interested. They're about $20 something a piece. And then I made a plate, and I'll show photos of it. But I made a plate so that this thing will sit on, and then it mounts securely in there. And then this one was also wired the same way with a micro USB. Yep, so you can see it's pretty much done the same way. This one's just a little bit higher up in there, just based off of the internal structure, because there's a plate that it connects to on the bottom. I just added a couple small styrene details, like this one has a bar going across the tender. And then here's the back head that I had to add in. So I actually used styrene along the top just because it's easier to work with to get it in and out of. And then just built up a styrene bottom. It's not as far back as it supposed to be, but because of the motor and some clearance issues, I just didn't put it back in there. But this one's built pretty much identical to the K27. So hopefully, the next month or so, I'm going to be painting this one. And I might do some videos as far as covering the painting process, how I paint my brass. I use a media blaster and blast the all the models, and it basically etches them. That way it primes. So this time I think I'll be using Tamiya primer on it, and then following it up with the True Color paints. I've been using those on other projects and really like them. They seem to work well. But yeah, so this one, same as the other, it just needs some small wiring stuff, the same plugs to disconnect everything. That way, when I go to paint or maintenance or whatever, it's a lot easier. Oh, and the other thing I did on both of them was adding, just soldered a wire to the trucks, because you usually pick up one side and then the locomotive picks up the other side. And a lot of the brass models will actually have springs on the trucks that keep them centered and constant pressure. This one doesn't, neither does the other one. So I just added these wires that solder to the top of the truck bolsters. That way it's always got electrical contact. And then hopefully this one also has the Keep Alive and the 126 in there. Between the two of those and the Keep Alive, I'm going to see about not adding wipers. But if need be, I'll just go ahead and add wipers. I did that on my West Side K27, and it works really well. Like I said, I've kind of been on a buying spree. Just they've been having such good deals on eBay for stuff. So this is a precision scale. It is the Rio Grande Goose, and it's factory painted. This one is pretty much brand new. I don't even know if it's been run, because the previous owner had cooked the motor off in it. And the motor actually sits right back in here, and then it's got a drive shaft that goes through the seats there, and then it connects to this front power truck only, and then these are just electrical pickups for the rear. So this one already has the lights and stuff in it, but they're just the bulb lights. So I'm going to be replacing those with LEDs. So I already replaced the motor. Northwest Shortline sells a motor that is an exact match other than the shaft diameter, and then you just buy a bushing reducer. So I put the new Northwest Shortline motor in here. I have yet to wire this thing up because I haven't actually put the DCC in yet. That's an upcoming project. So I think I can either put the decoder along the roof, and it's getting the 126 with the Keep Alive, and then maybe put the Keep Alive inside the cab body, because there is no interior inside this. So I don't think there is. Oh, maybe there is. All right. So yeah, I'll figure something out. But I'm gonna, like I said, put the LED lights there, and then it's got the one light to the rear that I'll be adding. So this one I got, it pretty much was half off of what you would normally pay, because brass trains, that's where I kind of gauge how much the market is asking for brass models. So Brass Trains just sold one of these for $425. I got this one for about $200, and the motor was only $20. So to have it factory painted, everything good. Hopefully it runs. It looked like it should. But yeah, so hopefully I'll have this one up running pretty quick, because this will be the quickest since I don't have to paint it. So the next thing that I bought, again on eBay, because it was a really good price. I actually bought 4 of these. I built up 3 to this point. So I don't have all my modeling tools with me. So I built them up to just a general point. And then all the grab irons and stuff, all I'm going to do when I get home, just because I don't have all my drills and my pin vise and all that. But the basic structures I could build with the stuff I had here. So these are the MRGS, this brand here, and these are the ones I've built before. But I got 4 of them on eBay. I think it was $45, and these are the older ones that have the plastic roofs. So this is like a 3-piece roof. They are a lot of work to get these roofs to go together. But the way I did it as you can see in there, is I add that thick styrene beam going across, and basically that's what I do first, and then that gets them pretty straight. And then these side pieces inside here you have to glue in, and it just takes time. It's not unbearable, but it's doable. And then the kits they always come with the plastic that's like an injection molded strip. So I just use the styrene strips on those. And then the other thing that I've done to these, that I've done to the other two that I've built, is the roofs are removable. And in order to hold them down, you can see that screw in there. And then the bottom side, there's an Allen that is recessed down in there, so it clears the trucks. And then all it does is screw into the top there. And if I can get this thing to focus, and then that holds it in place. Because it's kind of a must. Because in order to finish these cars, the bodies are green, the roofs are black. To try and mask all that, to glue it, pain in the ass. It's a lot easier just to come back and do it two pieces, and then that way you can also add all your windows, and then first dull coat it and then add your windows, so you don't end up messing up your windows and glazing them over. So I haven't built one of these before, and it's the same brand, and these are all using Grant Line trucks because the Blackstones are pretty much impossible to get right now. So I found a 4-pack of these Grant Lines. I think it was like $30 or $40 on eBay, which is pretty good. They're about $10 a kit. But you have to assemble them. And then it turns out the last 2 packages did not have the center bolsters in them. So I ended up having to scratch build these center bolsters, which just added to the build time on this. But as you can see, it actually came out pretty good. I actually tried some new techniques as far as bending styrene. So just using 2 real thin pieces and sandwiching them with some glue worked out really well. And then I have interiors. They're the again, you can't find the Grant Line seats anymore, and I need a whole bunch of them. So I found I think it's the Ricks products, or plaster. Yeah, they're Ricks. They make some generic looking seats that I can throw in for now. And then this one has the same screwed roof with the recess. So the screws will be hidden. I'm going to make an interior little partition piece on both ends, so you won't see the screw poking through. So like I said, I've got some work to do. Like this one I'll actually make end rails. I'm probably going to make them out of brass and solder them, because the plastic ones will take 1 or 2 hits and then they're pretty much done. So, and of course, you know, I do standard gauge modern, and I've been doing a lot of narrow gauge lately just because that's kind of been piquing my interest, because they've got a lot of cool kits and stuff to build, and I like building kits. But this one is just, I don't know why, but I just have this thing for Canadian, some of their weird diesels. I really like them just because they're really unique. So this is the Rapido. It's a -8 40 cm. And then it's a CN, but it's the British Columbia. I don't know. I'm not a big Canadian modeler. But basically, I think these were subleased to the British Columbia. So in doing so, it comes with all the lights are all lit LED, but it doesn't, the class marker lights are not lit on this one. Not a big deal. The Bowser one that I have does. But at least it comes with these add-ons, because these are just silk screened on. And I wasn't really excited about that, but I'm glad that they included these headlight brackets. They look like they're etched brass, if I can get it to focus. So I'll be adding those. I just need to do that. I just been doing all this other stuff. And then I guess the British Columbia, versions had an extra set of ditch lights. So they actually include them with the SMDs, and they show you how to solder them in there. So I'll be doing that. I'll be adding these ditch lights as well. I mean, more ditch lights the better. But really nice model. I mean, it's not the fully detailed like the grill and stuff. I mean, this isn't an etched part, but they don't really make these other than Overland Brass, and the Overlands are about $700-800, and then you got to paint them. The factory painted ones are like $900. I can't justify buying that. So the one cool thing about this, I'm sure everybody has already known, but the coaters are in the bottom. I mean, this is like, I don't know why nobody else does this. This is the coolest. So I already added a decoder in here. It's a non-sound. It's the 21 pin. I believe this is an ESU. I can't remember. I bought this about 2-3 months ago. But you can actually see the contacts. I believe this is where you can solder the other ditch lights onto. I mean, they just made this thing super simple. So haven't run it yet. Again, 'cause, you know, I've been out of town. But yeah, being out of town and having free time and the internet is a bad thing because you end up buying lots of stuff. And this is one of the things I bought. If anybody's wondering, as far as the coders, this is the one that I have for the Galloping Goose. So it's just a 126, and then you can see on the end there how it's got that plug, and that's what differentiates the 120. I believe it's a 123 because that's what I used before, and the 126. So they allow for the power extender to be used. You can use any power extender because then you have to solder wires, and they tell you how to do it on other decoders, but I just want to plug and play. And then here's the power extender itself. This is a smaller version. I don't remember. I think it's a PX101 is the bigger version, but it's just got that little 2-pin connector, and that's what goes into the decoder. I've never used these before. I've seen a lot of other people using them, and they seem to work well. And these are, I'm using the smaller ones because these are for the narrow gauge stuff, and they have a really small draw as far as amperage. So give these a try. I mean, it definitely helps. So maybe in the future I might be adding these to existing locomotives, because the decoder itself I bought off of an online, I think it was the Yankee Dabbler. That's my kind of my go-to for eBay. This was $17. This, I want to say, was like $22. So yeah, it's about $40 per locomotive. But it's, in my opinion, it's worth it. Hopefully. I haven't tried it out yet, but from what I've seen, they work well. So probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I should be back home so I can continue on. I just want to show you guys what I've been doing, and I've just been rail fanning because I'm in New Mexico right now, and they have a lot of stuff up at the narrow gauge. So the other stuff I bought too, I got a new airbrush. So I got an Iwata BCS. It's an internal mix bottle feed. I've been wanting a new airbrush for a long time, so I'll be using that, painting the 2 brass locomotives. Also, I got a spray booth. It's a Mr. Hobby that I got off of Amazon. They're about $100. It's, again, something else I've been wanting for a really long time, because I've always kind of had a haphazard, you know, I wouldn't say crappy setup, but I paint in the garage, so I'm trying to clean up and, you know, take my stuff to the next level as far as, you know, cleanliness and so on. So I'll have that. I'll show that in a video when I get home and set it up, because it's pretty big. But I can show some, I'll show some pictures of it at the end of the setup. It looks really nice. It seems like it draws a lot of air for what it does. But again, I'll put that into another video. So this one's pretty long, but just a lot of stuff to cover. So hopefully I should be back in about 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, guys.